The latest reports on Brock Purdy, how much money he's going to make from the San Francisco 49ers, and a lot of people making a big deal about Jed York's comments, not about is he going to be signed, but about how Jed York personally ranks Brock Purdy amongst NFL quarterbacks. Some draft notes, Kyle Shanahan, 8 years into the job, and more coming up on today's Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker at BD Peacock at Crocky209. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Love our everydayers. We appreciate you out there. Let us know you stopped by. I know you already are subscribed, and if you're not, shame on you. You should be. Pause right now. Rectify that. Hit the thumbs up. Let us know that you're here today. We see some of you already jumping in on the live chat on this Thursday evening for you driving in your cars on the way to work. Friday morning episode. If you're new to the program, subscribe on YouTube and anywhere you listen to your podcasts. Let's talk a little bit about Brock Purdy. It's been a little bit since we checked in, and according to the latest reports, Croc, it's going to be estimated that at least $120 million in guarantees for Brock Purdy in his contract, which is something that I don't think is breaking news because I've been talking about like $150 million in guarantees. This is going to be a big contract that's worth a whole lot of money. And you're not going to skate through a $55 million quarterback contract, let's say, and not have, more than half of it in guarantees over the course of 4 or 5 years or however long this contract goes. So there's going to be a lot of guarantees in this contract. That's what the whole offseason's been about, Croc, is how much money Jed York's going to have to throw down at one time. And it's funny because everyone talking about Jed York being cheap. The 49ers literally, when they signed Brock Purdy, will have spent more money this offseason than any offseason in franchise history because of Brock Purdy's contract. It's going to be the biggest contract times 2 nearly in franchise history.
Repeat that guaranteed number.
120 million in guarantees.
So I just pulled up Jamar Chase's contract because I was like, let's reference that with the receiver. 112 million guaranteed.
Yeah, and that's 40.5 million or something like that per year. I think
40,
So I think Myles Garrett and Jamar Chase now are the only non-quarterbacks that have gone over $40 million per year annual value on their new extensions. And so, like $120 million, that's not even news that it's going to be at least $120 million. That would be like a floor of guarantees. And who knows, maybe the 49ers are able to do a contract where the yearly money is big and the guarantees are a little bit lower than some other contracts. But, I mean, the way these contracts are going, and thanks a lot Cleveland Browns, who gave Deshaun Watson like his entire contract in guarantees, the percentage of guaranteed money is going up and up and up. And what the interesting thing, I think, the most interesting contract recently was Josh Allen, because Josh Allen, I thought, was going to be like the first $70 million per year quarterback, but he ended up not being that high in annual value, but he got a pretty good chunk of what his contract extension was in guaranteed money. And so the guarantees are high. And so guaranteed percentages are only going up in the NFL. I would definitely hit the over on the $120 million guarantees on Brock Purdy's next contract. So to be honest with you, I don't know if it's really all that much news.
If I'm Brock Purdy and I'm his agent, I don't see a scenario where I'm taking less than 150 million guaranteed. Like when I hear 150 million guaranteed, that's like, okay, 3 years. Like I have 3 years of guaranteed money before they could try to do away with me. And I think for him, that would be fair. Now, again, I can have my opinion on how much I personally would pay him. But if I were Brock Purdy and I were Brock Purdy's agent, that's what I would be pushing for.
And not all guarantees are created equal. Some, when you first hear the contracts, the guarantees are reported, but some of it's guaranteed for injury, not, fully guaranteed. Fully guaranteed at signing is kind of the number that really matters the most for these players. But yeah, I mean, Brock Purdy's going to make a whole bunch of money. He's going to be more than $50 million per year. And if it's a 4-year contract, we're talking at least $200 million contract, probably more than that. And certainly much more than 50% of his contract is going to be guaranteed if we're paying attention to other contracts that are signed for the big money free agents around the NFL. So it's going to be a big money deal for the San Francisco 49ers that they're going to throw down. The question is, how much is he worth? What's the team look like around him is the big question, because we've already seen that it's going to take a toll on the rest of the roster when you start paying one guy that much money. And we're seeing the preparation for that already this offseason, Croc.
Well, it can take a toll. But when you look at a team like Philadelphia Eagles, I think they've done it right. And they're paying their quarterback a lot of money, but they got out in front of some of the other contracts. Like, think about Devontae Smith and when they signed him. Like, Devontae Smith had the 4th year left, the 5th year left, and then it's like, then the new money starts to kick in. And they signed him at a time where they were able to get him for a very good bargain. What was it, like 25 per year? That was good at that time for the receiver and the abilities that he has. When you look at the 49ers in a similar situation with Brandon Ayuk, what they do, they said, we're going to wait. We're going to wait. We're going to wait. Then the price kept going up. I think the Philadelphia Eagles have done a really good job of getting out in front of some of these guys that are going to cost them a lot of money, even some of their restructures before it gets to an astronomical number to hurt the team. Think about even re-signing A.J. Brown like they just did. Well, a couple weeks later, you see Jamar Chase and what he gets in $40 million. Do you think that would have changed whatever restructure they did with A.J. Brown? I think so. And that's not saying A.J. Brown would have got 40 per year, right? He's not the same caliber receiver as Jamar Chase. I definitely can see a scenario where he's like, well, I need to get a little bit closer to that than what I just resigned for. So I think the 49ers, they've probably been doing themselves a disservice by waiting and then other guys getting signed. And that was the big conversation that you and I had surrounding Ayuk's contract.
Yeah.
Like, it was not a secret that a ton of receivers were going to sign in that offseason. Like, we all knew that. And we all were saying, hey, you might want to sign Brandon Ayuk before these other guys get signed. I think the 49ers had an opportunity to sign Brandon Ayuk for roughly 25 per year, somewhere around there. And obviously the real money makes a difference, but you could have got him for a lower price that you felt more comfortable with. But instead, you wanted to lowball him and kind of drag out this negotiation process. Other guys start getting signed. That drove his price way up. And it was something that even now today we're hearing you're not very comfortable with what you're paying him. I see it doesn't matter in the chat, and he talks about Diamador Lenoir's contract. It's a steal. They got out ahead of Diamador's contract, and I think they did a really good job of that. And I think they need to do that with some of these other contracts, including Brock Purdy's. Get that deal done now before some other people start to sign, and I think it could change the money. The only thing that kind of works a little bit against Brock is that Josh Allen, like you said, I mean, he signed for 55 per year and didn't go crazy with the market. And now it could kind of open that conversation up to the 49ers. Well, like, well, if he's making 55, why do you think we should pay you that same amount?
Right. And then they'll come back with like, okay, we can go lower, but we need more in guarantees. And so that's kind of what the dance is going to be, I think, with this contract and these negotiations. And John Lynch talking about the contract, and he says he thinks it's going to get done, but it's not going to get done soon. That was kind of what John Lynch said about it. And so, hopefully we don't have a prolonged holdout, but that's kind of where we are right now. And so I don't know if the specifics of the contract are really worth talking about a whole lot right now until we start getting close to a date where there might be holdouts happening when we start talking about mini camps and OTAs and those things. And I can't imagine Brock Purdy's going to be at OTAs. And then that's when the conversation starts up again. And that's where leverage starts to be pulled and applied in different ways with this negotiation. And what's interesting is that let's say Brock Purdy got like, say, $53 million per year on his contract, and it was like a 5-year deal, right? If the top non-quarterbacks right now are starting to get 40 per year, in 5 years, you might have a defensive end. Like in 4 years, what is Abdul Carter's contract going to look like? Let's say he gets drafted in the top 3 and is a superstar. He's going to have a new contract that maybe is ready to go before Brock Purdy's deal is up. If it's at 40 right now, what's that contract going to look like? So there might be guys that aren't even quarterbacks making more than $53 million per year in 4 or 5 years from now, too. With the way that money's going, it's going kind of crazy, Brock, even for non-quarterbacks. So that's another way to look at it with Brock Purdy and his contract.
There's one thing in the chat I would like to kind of take a stab at real quick. I just saw it. There's a question about Brock Purdy, Josh Allen. Where is it? Here we go. How many Super Bowls has Allen been to is what I'd say and pertain saying that because of, Brock Purdy and comparing the money. I'd say one of the funnier things is when it comes to just quarterbacks, right? And people, they kind of pick and choose the battle that they want to fight with that. When you look at the 49ers and, what they did last year, they won 6 games. It's like, hey, QB wins is not a real stat because he won 6 games. But then turn around and say, well, this guy goes to the Super Bowl and this guy wins all these playoff games. And it's like, okay, so that's a QB stat.
Yeah.
But when it doesn't go well, that's not a QB stat.
Okay, that's a perfect segue. Let's get into this because a lot of people are asking me and making a big deal about Jed York and his comments. And it kind of, I didn't really think too much about it because, to be honest with you, I didn't realize that Jed York was a ball knower because I thought he nailed it when he called Brock Purdy a top 10 quarterback, right? He didn't call him a top 5 quarterback. And so some fans are thinking, is Brock Purdy even a top 10 quarterback? There's national arguments about Brock Purdy. The local market likes Brock Purdy more than the national pundits do. And then is he potentially even better than that? Was that derogatory from Jed York about Brock Purdy being just a top 10 quarterback? So let's talk about that next. I want to get into Kyle Shanahan, what the years have done and Super Bowl losses might have done to Kyle Shanahan over the course of the last 8 years, and some draft notes as well next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by Nissan. The Armada Player of the Week is brought to you by our friends at Nissan and the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Each week, we're going to take a look at our draft prospects and pick one guy that stands apart, the guy we believe showcased the strength and power and speed and everything needed for the 49ers to move forward as we look ahead to next season. And this week's Armada clear-cut Player of the Week is, Croc, I think we both really like the UCLA linebacker, Carson Schwessinger. And I don't think I was going to pencil in a linebacker in the first 2 rounds for the San Francisco 49ers. And who knows, Carson Schwessinger might not even make it to pick 43 for the 49ers, Croc. But, I'm warming up the idea. Maybe off-ball linebacker. Kyle Shanahan didn't seem
I can see him next to Fred Warner right now.
Yeah. So there you go. Armada Player of the Week, Carson Schwessinger out of UCLA. Potential prospect for the San Francisco 49ers. If he's on the board at pick 43, could be a difference maker on the defensive side of the football for the San Francisco 49ers. Speaking of Nissan Armada, we're talking about heavy duty, rugged. Armada conquers the road with capability and confidence. And when you dream big, you go big. And those are the important attributes when it comes to scouting the Nissan Armada. It's clear that our player of the week is out here ready to conquer the road ahead with confidence, just like you can in the all-new Nissan Armada. And any of our outstanding vehicles, obviously the speed is there. I don't need a 40 time on the Nissan Armada. I don't need it for Carson Schwessinger either. Take the Nissan Armada, Rogue, or Pathfinder and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. Did you think anything of it when Jed York called Brock Purdy a top 10 quarterback? And to be honest with you, when I think it's kind of important because that's how they feel about Brock Purdy, right? And so that's good and bad. They believe Brock Purdy's a good quarterback. He's a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. He said it with confidence, right? But they didn't call him a top 5 quarterback. And to be honest with you, I think Jed York nailed it. I've talked about Brock Purdy a lot. People argue about, you talked about the QB wins argument, and it's like, okay, when your team goes 6-11, they start talking about EPA per play and not QB wins. And then when you go to the Super Bowl, even if you lose the Super Bowl, they say, how many Super Bowls has Josh Allen been to? How many Super Bowls has Lamar Jackson been to, right? I think it's pretty darn clear that Brock Purdy isn't a top 5 quarterback and he's not amongst the elite in the NFL. I'm sure a lot of fan bases like the Detroit Lions would argue that their guy, Jared Goff, is better than Brock Purdy. And I know every single 49ers fan I know, even the ones that don't love Brock Purdy, they would say Brock Purdy's better than Jared Goff, Baker Mayfield, those quarterbacks. I think Matthew Stafford clearly would be somebody who's ahead of Brock Purdy on the current pecking list. Jaden Daniels definitely passed up Brock Purdy very quickly. He's probably in that top 5 conversation of elite quarterbacks. But the next group, there's so many guys you could argue. And Brock Purdy's in there. And I've said, Brock Purdy's probably 8 to 12, something like that. What do you think about the top 10? And do you think Jed York had it right when he called Brock Purdy a top 10 quarterback? And we do this with the draft too, Croc. When you say someone's a top 50 prospect, you don't say that about a guy who's going to go in the top 5. You say that about a guy that's going to go closer to pick 50. So when Jed York says top 10, he means closer to 10.
Yeah, and I believe so too. And I think Purdy is definitely in that range. Chase Daniel put out a QB tiers list, and I like when people use tiers because that kind of separates
Okay.
what you think about a guy. Now, I think he had 2 tiers on it. So, you know what? Let me bring that. Let me bring that up on the screen here. So we're gonna share screen. Chase Daniel. Boom. All right, we got Chase Daniel on the screen here and his QB tiers. So Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson. I don't think anybody will argue with that. That is his tier 1 guys. Then he has a tier 2 list. And if you just go in the order that he has the quarterbacks in, it looks, and maybe I'm reading this wrong, but it looks like Justin Herbert, Matthew Stafford, Jared Goff, Jaden Daniels, Brock Purdy, then Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott, CJ Stroud. And if that's your order, just in the sense of the top quarterbacks in the league, there's 12 up there right there. That has them pegged at 9. So right there, that's a top 10 quarterback.
He does say, Chase Daniel says, these are not in order. The tiers are ranked, but the order within the tier is not ranked.
Gotcha.
So that could be QB5 for Brock Purdy. It could be QB12. He said there's other couple quarterbacks that didn't fit in the graphic that he would probably put in tier 2 as well, which I believe was Baker Mayfield and somebody else. But
I was gonna say Baker not being on here, and I get it. It's Baker Mayfield, and he was number 1 overall pick. He started off really hot. It got a little cold. Some of the whatever was going on. Taking that Tampa Bay team to the playoffs, like going to the playoffs with, solid running back game. Was the Bucky Irving came on a little bit throughout the season. I thought he ran the ball well. Mike Evans, they kind of forced getting him 1,000 yards. You didn't have Chris Godwin, throwing over 40 touchdowns in the season. That was a very impressive season by Baker Mayfield to kind of like will his team to the postseason. So to not have him in this tier, even though it can't fit, like I felt like he had a better season than a lot of these guys. Maybe he's looking at it as just that, like it's just a season, or is he looking at it as, if I had to draft quarterbacks, how would I draft them? And these are guys that I would draft ahead of Baker Mayfield.
With the younger quarterbacks in the league too, it'll be interesting to see where Brock Purdy ranks in the Mike Sando tiers, the article he does every year for The Athletic, which is always really cool, and it has quotes, and it's actually ranked from decision makers in the NFL. So you learn how the NFL feels about this guy, about these guys. And I'd be willing to bet that Brock Purdy is pretty high in the tiers, but after a 6-11 season, he might even drop a little bit. He'll be behind Jaden Daniels that he wasn't behind before last year. I'm sure he'll be behind guys like Jalen Hurts, who won a Super Bowl. He'll be behind CJ Stroud. He'll be behind Matthew Stafford. Justin Herbert's an interesting one. Rico says Purdy is better than Herbert. I don't think it's close. I don't think there's a single Chargers fan that'll agree with you, right? And so that's kind of the thing.
I don't think it's just the Charger fans. Well, again, right. If there was a quarterback draft, how many NFL coaches and GMs are taking Brock Purdy over Justin Herbert?
Not very many. And who knows? Maybe Kyle Shanahan.
I don't even know if the 49ers are. Like, I don't even think Kyle Shanahan would do that. Like, you have to watch. Like, if you just watch a game, like, just go and watch Justin Herbert. It's like, it ain't all just arm strength. Like, the dude is talented out of his world, and he's done some very impressive things, and he's had to kind of do a little bit more. I mean, when we look at your situation is your situation, but it's like my best weapon on my entire team is Lab McConkey.
Yeah, that's part of it. I was just going to say, Croc, it's like, okay, so drop Justin Herbert in on that 2023 San Francisco 49ers team. It might look a little bit better than Brandon Staley's Los Angeles Chargers football team. That's all I'm saying. And would Purdy look a little bit worse in some other situations? And I think that's kind of the conversation with these tier 2 guys. They're all really good quarterbacks. You're probably going to be better than half the teams you're playing against quarterbacks when they're trying to figure out their quarterback situation. But can they do it all on their own like the tier 1 guys? And that's the big difference there. And then that's kind of where the conversation becomes like, okay, well, how much is too much when you're paying a guy that still needs help? And I think Brock Purdy still needs help. And I get why Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson should be paid like absurd money. I don't think Brock Purdy's there, but the going rate right now is really high. And we're seeing Goff and some of these other guys and Hurts and these other guys in these other tiers getting $50 million per year. And those are for sure Brock Purdy's peers. So he deserves what those guys are getting, and his agent is right to be asking for it. So that's what's just interesting about this negotiation. And I wonder how far apart the 49ers are with Brock Purdy and how they're structuring this contract.
The initial question that you asked is, do I think that Brock Purdy is top 10 quarterback? I absolutely do.
Mm-hmm.
What is the difference between some of the guys that are 8 to 10 in comparison to the guys that are like 1 through 7? I think there may be a difference in those guys. And again, we're talking about the 1 through 5 guys. There's a difference. I think kind of 5 through 7, there's a difference. And then when you get into kind of that Purdy tier, I think there's a difference as well.
There needs to be more tiers. There's kind of like the elite tier. Then there's a tier 2, which is pre-elite, and guys like Jaden Daniels who might get there. I think Matthew Stafford should probably be in that tier. And then here's the other thing is there's guys that are currently not as good as Brock Purdy, or at least last we saw him on the field. But would anybody be shocked if under Ben Johnson, all of a sudden Caleb Williams looked like a top 10 quarterback too, and maybe even a top 6, 7, 5 quarterback, or Drake May? There's going to be a guy that goes number 1 overall in this draft in Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders. Do those guys hit? Are they going to, so you can go from 9 to 15 pretty quick in the NFL too, Croc. And that's the other thing. And I think all these teams, it's funny because every team thinks they've got a pretty good quarterback situation. And then all of a sudden you find out now it's still only 20 good quarterbacks in the NFL every time we get to this portion. And then everyone's like, okay, we're going to shuffle it around. All right, we think we're pretty good. We got 32 good quarterbacks in the NFL. It's like, nope, still only 20 of these guys. And Brock Purdy is one of the ones that you're glad is on your team. And I think that's the important factor as far as Brock Purdy. Arguing about if he's 8 or 12 probably doesn't bring much fruit for me.
I think when you're looking at, just paying a guy, and you look at this situation that the 49ers are in with Brock Purdy, I think it comes down to just what are you comfortable paying him? What are the 49ers comfortable paying him? I think it kind of goes back to their conversation with or negotiations with Brandon Ayuk, right? Like Brandon Ayuk, I know they like Brandon Ayuk. I think we all like Brandon Ayuk. How much do you like Brandon Ayuk, and do you feel uncomfortable paying him a certain amount? Clearly, they feel uncomfortable with what they ended up paying him. And is there a number that you could feel uncomfortable with paying Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes? I don't think so. I think whatever you pay him, you're like, hey, man, I'm happy to pay you this. I think there's some other quarterbacks, including like Jordan Love. I see some people, Jordan Love makes the dumbest mistakes, right? Jordan Love did not have a great season. Like, it didn't look good. Are the Packers, I don't want to say having buyer remorse, but do they say, that was a little weird? Right. Okay.
Perfect example. In fact, maybe we should. I guarantee you, I get Peter Bukowski of Locked On Packers on the podcast right now. He would tell me every single reason why there is no doubt 100% in his mind that Jordan Love is clearly better than Brock Purdy. I know that's what his answer would be. You know what I mean? Like, that's just how this goes.
And I would give him a bunch of reasons as to like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about, Peter. I like Jordan Love. I think, he showed some good stuff. I think the year prior, him and Purdy, I mean, they were two of the better quarterbacks the second half of the season. And I think it's impressive him doing it with a lot of these, young weapons and whatnot. But to just say that this guy is better than Brock Purdy, like, I don't see that. Maybe I'm tripping.
Let's talk Kyle Shanahan and the post that's making its rounds around the Twitterverse, and the picture of him when he was a young pup being signed by the San Francisco 49ers as head coach, and what he looks like now after a couple of Super Bowl losses and a 6-11 season. Next. All right, Croc. I want to go to a post that you made, which was on Twitter, which was actually a call out to the original post. And I didn't even find out here who exactly it was that put the initial photo up. It was Mike Urtaza, I believe, is who it was. Here we go. I'll bring this up right now on the screen for those people who are watching us on YouTube. And if you're not, you can find this on Croc's Twitter page, and we'll talk you through what we see on the screen right now. And essentially, Kyle Shanahan has aged quite a bit in the last 8 years. My first response to this There's two, Croc. One, it is for sure, no matter if you lost a couple Super Bowls or not, it is a heck of a ringer to be put through to be a head coach of an NFL football team. There's the hours, the stress. It's the real deal. But this is this is pretty striking when you see Kyle Shanahan at that media breakfast from the owners' meetings this week, and then you see how just clean shaven and baby faced he looked in 2017 when he was hired as head coach of the San Francisco 49ers. Like it's pretty striking, Croc. And 8 years is a long time. To be honest with you, the second part of this for me, Croc, is I feel the exact same way as Kyle Shanahan looks. So I don't know if it's the 49ers, or I don't know if 8 years is a long time, but and I don't know if I was his baby face looking 8 years ago. I'm pretty similar age to Kyle Shanahan. Those two faces back to back, I feel that same way. Like 8 years takes it out of you, and maybe it's just covering the 49ers every day. And maybe that's what's done it to both me and Kyle Shanahan, but might have been having a kid in there, might have been, just the natural age progression. I mean, 8 years is a long time, Croc. There's elementary school kids in 2017 that are in college now.
I think more than anything with this picture, how much different would it be if he just didn't have the sandbags underneath his eyes? Because we see he got the silver fox thing going on with the peppered beard and the hair's longer, is combed back. But I think it looks so drastically different and bad of a picture. I mean, it looks like he hasn't slept in weeks.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest difference more than anything. If you take those, I'm putting my finger over the bags right now. It's not that bad. But definitely has aged though. I mean, he's aging like the president.
He's starting to look a little bit more like his dad is what it is. And but so here's the other part of it, a little background on Kyle Shanahan. It looks like he didn't sleep. I don't think he slept very much, or probably not very well, Croc, because this is a morning thing. It's I think they call it the coach's breakfast or something like that. And so this is like a little round table that they do with the reporters, and it's early in the morning. And the night before this was the owner's party. And my guy, Matt Williamson, tells me about it every year. He was there at the owners' meetings. He was at the owners' party. It's there, there's media, there's coaches there. He says Andy Reid is there dancing to the band, wearing a Hawaiian shirt. And the alcohol is flowing. They have like a Manhattan station. And so there might have been quite a bit of partying happening for Kyle Shanahan. So I think on top of being 8 years older, on top of the grind of being a head coach, losing a couple Super Bowls, I think he literally probably did not sleep a lot and was probably feeling somewhat hungover on this morning, and just kind of a bad picture. I don't know if he necessarily, if you asked him, he's like, hey, do you feel as bad as you look right now? I don't know if that's the case, but it is pretty striking when you see what he looked like 8 years ago versus what he looks like right now. He was in his 30s, though, when he was hired. Wasn't he like 37, 38? He was a young head coach when he was hired.
Yeah. Now, I bet if you went back 8 years and, tried to see what Eric Crocker looked like at 30 years old, I'll be 38 in May. So, dang, next month now. I think I looked a little younger as well.
Well, hey, Eric Crocker in his 30s just got a head coaching job, so we'll check back on you in 8 years and see what coaching high school kids at the varsity level for 8 years does to you, Crocker. That might be a little bit obvious, actually.
If I get the braids and the beard, though, I won't be mad at that. Just look a little mature.
I've been trying to, I've been trying to maximize the silver fox look because it's happening for me as well. And yeah, the gray hitting really changes it because you can't really hide it. And I don't think I'm going to dye it or anything. It's going to just get grayer and grayer. I think that's just it's the way it's going to go. But I look like Kyle Shanahan. I mean, I feel like Kyle Shanahan looks. I probably look pretty similar. It's been a serious 8 years, and so maybe it's just a 49ers thing. I wonder what everybody else looked like 8 years ago too that follows this team on the day to day. You did put
in fairness to the side by side, right, of Kyle Shanahan and him aging and Sean McVay. I will say McVay is closer to the age of Kyle in the first picture, like McVay now.
Yeah, he's 6 years younger than Kyle, so that means that, yeah, he's only 2 years older in the now photo than Kyle was when he was hired. So we'll check back in 6 more years on Sean McVay and see what that's done to him.
I do think that one difference that may play a part, and I don't know if Kyle's doing this or not, but McVay works out, and that definitely like changes a lot of things just with your, your muscle and your face and how it looks and your skin. Like skin, that stuff, like lifting weights helps your skin, and I mean, there's all kind of benefits to it. So there's a chance that he still ends up looking younger because of just how he takes care of his body.
Both former wide receivers in college as well, Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan. So there you go.
Yeah,
and McVay doesn't have as much weight on his shoulders. He won that Super Bowl. He's got that ring. It's got to be part of it, right?
And this might be one of the bigger deciding factors, right? We talk about, coaching and how that ages you like the president. What about this? Kids, like, kids don't help you stay young.
Nope.
And anybody that has kids and, and just the school and this and that, Kyle Shanahan, a lot of people see Kyle Shanahan at like 7-on-7 tournaments, and his son is active and stuff. I can't tell you how many people I know that run into Kyle Shanahan at some of these passing tournaments. So he's out there supporting his kids, and they can definitely aid you a little bit.
No doubt. What's the scouting report on young Shanahan? Is he a wide receiver like his dad? I think Kyle wasn't Kyle a quarterback?
Carter's his name.
Yeah. Kyle was a quarterback early on too, wasn't he?
That's probably where all I know is the Texas version of Kyle Shanahan being a receiver.
He was definitely a wide receiver. I think he might have been a college quarterback though, and he might have actually did because
he was number 87. There's no way he was ever a quarterback with number 87.
No, but I mean in high school before he got to Texas, and I think he might have tried to be a quarterback. He went to like Duke first or something, didn't he? Before he went to Texas, Kyle Shanahan. I think he might have tried to be a quarterback at first, then played wide receiver, then transferred to Texas as a.
Did he really? Let's see. I'm gonna pull this up on Wiki because I don't remember him ever. Let's see, Kyle Shanahan.
Let us know in the chat.
He was at Duke. I never knew that. That might be like kind of a fun fact. I mean, everybody knew he was at Texas, but he was at Duke. Now I wonder how that worked because they had different rules back then. 1998, he was at Duke. 1999, he was at Texas until 2002. 2002. Okay, he probably redshirted a year because you could redshirt, but no, he was at. Yeah, I never knew that. I had no idea he was ever at Duke.
I think Kyle did a good job self-scouting though, because he scouted himself and realized he wasn't a quarterback, switched to wide receiver, and was able to give himself a little college career as a wide receiver. And he also, I think, turned down an invite to either to the Combine or the Senior Bowl or one of those because he knew he wasn't going to be an NFL guy. And so I think he knew that about himself. So 4-1 for Kyle Shanahan on the self-scouting department. All right. I think we should get out of here, Croc. Thanks, everybody, for jumping in on this live episode of Locked On 49ers. We appreciate all of our everydayers out there. Subscribe on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcasts. And for your second listen, check out any of the 200 podcasts on the network, including the Peacock and Williamson NFL show, myself and former NFL scout Matt Williamson breaking down the entire league daily. I think Williamson's got a mock draft coming up soon. Wonder who's going to give to the San Francisco 49ers. And, of course, Croc and I will be back with you next time breaking down everything going on with your San Francisco 49ers right here. Locked On 49ers.